Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Raisha Sehgal. On the show tonight, we will tell you about Pakistan's nuclear threat. A rattled Pakistan has given the unthinkable order of pressing on the nuclear button. And tonight, we tell you how India is one of the 4 nations in the world to possess a nuclear triad capable of a devastating second strike. We will also tell you how the Pakistan government has appointed an intelligence agency chief, ISI Chief Lieutenant General Asim Malik, as the country's new NSA. What does this appointment mean for the Pakistani army and the political establishment in the country? And we ask, is Pakistan split at the top over India? On Gravitas exclusive tonight, we will tell you how UK MP Bob Blackman has backed India's right to punish Pakistan. All that and a lot more lined up for you on the show. Let's get you started. The world holds its breath as tensions between 2 nuclear-armed neighbours, India and Pakistan, are escalating. Imagine, in a moment of desperation, Pakistan's military high command gives this unthinkable order: press the nuclear button. Our next story explains how India is one of 4 nations in the world to have a nuclear triad, giving it a devastating second strike. Take a look.
This is the doomsday scenario. In a strategic miscalculation, Pakistan's military command issues an order that no nation should consider. Pakistan activates its nuclear weapons. Within moments, missiles are screaming across the skies. The incoming missiles face India's advanced anti-missile defense systems, a mix of both homegrown and foreign origin systems. First up, they encounter the Prithvi air defense that intercepts ballistic missiles outside the Earth's atmosphere. Next comes the indigenous missile advanced air defense that intercepts and destroys targets in the lower atmospheric layer. This is followed by the Akash missile system that hits aerial targets up to 30 kilometers. And finally, India has the Russian S-400 that can take on a wide range of aerial threats, including ballistic and cruise missiles. Years of meticulous intelligence gathering and advanced satellite surveillance have stripped Pakistan's nuclear infrastructure of any element of secrecy. India's war plans have precisely factored in each silo, mobile launcher and weapon storage facility. Strategically positioned, Pakistan's nuclear missiles are hidden in fortified garrisons and underground facilities. Pakistan's land-based missile silos are located at the Akru garrison, the Gujranwala garrison, the Khuzdar garrison, the Pano Akil garrison and the Sargodha garrison. Pakistan has placed its nuclear-capable bombers at the Minhas Air Base, the Shehbaz Air Base, the Rafiki Air Base and the Masroor Air Base. India is one of only 4 nations with a fully operational nuclear triad, land, air and sea-based nuclear delivery systems. Which means that even if Pakistan uses nuclear weapons first, India's second strike capability, especially its stealth Arihant-class submarines, will guarantee a punishing response, nullifying any nuclear blackmail.
Pakistan, we have seen over the years that if you compare the Pakistan Army and the Indian Army, and if you compare their conventional strength, you will find that the Indian Army is twice as strong as the Pakistan Army, whether in terms of air power, land power, or naval power. So the country which can't match you conventionally has to resort to this nuclear rhetoric. And that is what we are seeing from Pakistan.
History is witness to Pakistan's futile attempt to alter the status quo in 1999 during the Kargil conflict. Its covert incursions were met with a blistering Indian counteroffensive. Leveraging air power and high-altitude warfare, India's military not only recaptured lost ground, but called Pakistan's bluff of having nuclear weapons. Former Indian Defence Minister George Fernandes once put it bluntly, "There will be no Pakistan left when we have responded." He wasn't bluffing. The former defence minister was underscoring a truth that still holds. India's second strike capability is devastating, assured and precise. Pakistan may speak of full-spectrum deterrence, but India's response is spectrum-shattering. The first strike is no protection for Islamabad. It will only seal its fate. Bureau Report, WION The World.
And well, for more on this, you were earlier joined by Major General Rajan Kochar, Defence and Strategic Affairs Analyst, and we asked him about the continuous nuclear rhetoric emanating from Pakistan and how he sees the current situation, given how Pakistan does not have a no first use policy.
There is a danger to this because retaliation will also be there from the Indian side, because Indians do not have a first use nuclear policy, no first use. India will only use nuclear weapons in case the adversary starts off with the nuclear onslaught. So I presume that this is what Pakistan is trying to put that nuclear bogey, or you may call it the nuclear threat, on India from getting into a full-fledged conflict with India, because Pakistan does not want India to start a war with Pakistan as of now.
Pakistan has appointed ISI Chief Lieutenant General Mohammad Asim Malik as its new national security advisor. This is not just any other routine bureaucratic appointment. The changes at the top go far beyond Islamabad's corridors of power because for the first time in Pakistan's history, the same man will simultaneously hold both the ISI chief's post and helm the NSA's office. General Malik now commands an unprecedented grip over both intelligence operations and national security policy making. Pakistan left the NSA post empty for nearly 2 years, but this sudden appointment comes just after the horrific terror attack in Pahalgam. And make no mistake, this move is not about closing security gaps, it's about tightening the military's grip on Pakistan's fragile government. Malik is known to be a trusted loyalist of Pakistan Army Chief General Asim Munir. From managing internal military affairs as Adjutant General to stepping into the ISI's top job, Malik has always been Munir's trusted lieutenant. And his promotion to NSA, well, that's perhaps a direct reflection of Munir's increasing role in Pakistan's political landscape. On paper, Malik will report to Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, but the reality is likely to be starkly different because Malik really acts on Army Chief Munir's orders. The message is clear. Pakistan's real chain of command does not run through Islamabad, it runs straight from Rawalpindi's military headquarters. The timing of the Pahalgam terror attack and the appointment of Malik comes at a time when Pakistan is teetering on the edge. We say that because Pakistan's economy is crumbling, inflation is rising, and demonstrations across its major cities have become a norm. Baloch separatists continue to target the military, and the Pakistan Army claims it's killing infiltrators on the Afghan border, but it refuses to disclose its own casualties. Pakistan's military is clearly bruised and battered right now, and it is reverting to its old playbook. That's when things fall apart internally, they change the narrative vis-a-vis India. The Pahalgam terror attack fits this very pattern, an age-old strategy to distract the Pakistani people from the failures of the country's leadership. But this may not just be about distraction, there could be more at play. And Malik's appointment could be important in all of this. Munir's aggressive maneuvers, like his recent speech and his role in the Pahalgam terror attack, perhaps show signs of a coup in the making. Some voices say Munir is laying the groundwork to seize power outright. And having close aides like Malik could help him in this endeavor, as well as further embolden his desire to seek war with India. Just as Zia-ul-Haq did decades ago when his coup toppled and ultimately executed Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, or like General Pervez Musharraf with Nawaz Sharif. The Pakistani army has always forced its political opponents into exile or perhaps silenced them permanently. Former Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif perhaps narrowly escaped death only because Saudi Arabia offered him refuge. Now, as he advises his brother Shehbaz Sharif to seek peace with India, it begs this very question. Does diplomacy even matter when the levers of power are controlled by generals and not elected leaders in Pakistan? What we are witnessing is more than a leadership squabble. It's actually Pakistan unraveling from within. It's a country that is at war with itself. And for more on this, I earlier spoke to Captain Alok Bansal, Director of India Foundation, Executive Director of South Asian Institute for Strategic Affairs, and I asked him why Pakistan has taken this step of appointing an NSA right now, first after 2022, and how the Pakistan Army will view this appointment. This is what he had to say.
See, firstly, this is actually an exception. It's for the first time that a serving DGISI has been appointed as National Security Advisor. He could have retired and become National Security Advisor, but please understand this particular general who has very close to the army chief, and our army chief wants him to remain as DGSI, so he didn't want to leave him. But he has explicit faith in him, and that's why he has been elevated to the level of NSA, which is actually a federal minister equivalent rank. You can see the anomaly here. He'll be a 3-star under the chief, and there he'll be a federal minister. Also, you need to understand that he is academically inclined. He is a PhD. His PhD was on Pak-US relations. So I think Pakistan feels that appointing an NSA, which has the post which has been lying vacant for 3 years, firstly, in negotiating with India, they'll have somebody who can negotiate. But more importantly, he'll also be able to negotiate with US and other Western countries, because he's done a course in UK as well, who'll be able to impress upon Western countries Pakistan's viewpoint and impress upon them that they need to mediate. Otherwise, there'll be a nuclear holocaust.
And it's a sentiment that India shares with several other countries as far as the demand for justice is concerned, and for Pakistan to take action against terrorists operating on its very own soil. Last week, this issue reached the UK Parliament, the British Parliament, condemning the terror attack in Kashmir. Conservative Party MP Bob Blackman criticised the Pakistani military and government for condoning such acts. Well, in an exclusive interview with WION today, he said that religion-inspired violence cannot be tolerated and said that the world should stand in solidarity with India. Listen in to this Gravitas exclusive interview.
Absolutely dreadful. I mean, the reality is that this group of terrorists were well armed with modern sophisticated weapons. They were well organised, and indeed they were strongly supported in arriving at the site and deliberately targeting Hindu men, and in one case, I believe, a Christian man, but essentially anyone that was non-Muslim was being targeted, and they were only targeting men, and they deliberately shot them in the head. This sort of religious-inspired execution which took place cannot be tolerated. And it's deliberately aimed to cause trouble and tension between people of different religions. That must not be allowed to escalate. Well, what's happening at the moment is obviously governments all over the world are expressing sympathy and condolences to the government of India and to all the victims of this atrocity. However, India has to take action. India needs to both apprehend the terrorists and bring them to justice, but also bring the supporters, the backers of these terrorists to justice as well. And when that happens, it's pretty clear to me that given where the attitude that Pakistan has adopted so far, it's going to take military action to take that, to actually enforce that. There's going to be a problem for the rest of the world then. And I think that governments of all persuasions across the world, particularly in the West, should give full support to India in combating this terrorism and taking whatever measures it's requiring to do in order to stop the terrorism. Yes, I think the first thing is obviously the ideal position is that the terrorists are apprehended and then interrogated, because we all need to hear from those terrorists about who was backing them, who was supporting them, and what assistance was provided and by whom. So that then the individual backers and the supporters of the various different organisations can also be pursued. But what we can say, I think, is very clear, and that is India should have the backing of all right-thinking governments to make sure that the threat of terrorism is removed from their borders, and that those terrorists are not allowed to prevail. And in that regard, obviously the Indian government has my full support in whatever action it needs to take.
Did COVID-19 not come from Wuhan? China claims it originated in the US. A new report from the Chinese Communist Party has accused the US of being the origin of the virus that brought the world to a standstill in 2020. This after multiple investigations over the past few years have indicated a lab in China as the initial source of the deadly virus. China now accuses Washington of evading responsibility. There have been multiple statements made by US President Donald Trump suggesting that the virus leaked from a lab in Wuhan. In an elaborate document, the Chinese government claims that the infectious disease was present in the US earlier than officially determined. The paper quotes, and I quote here, the US should cease from shifting blame and evading responsibility, stop finding external excuses for its internal malice, and genuinely reflect on and overhaul its public health policies. The paper states the US cannot continue to turn a deaf ear to the numerous questions over its conduct. The paper was released shortly after the White House revamped its COVID.government website, which had previously promoted vaccines, but now discusses true origins of the disease. The updated site provides proof of lab leak theory and highlights how former National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Director Anthony Fauci advocated for the idea that COVID-19 originated naturally. It also mentions former President Joe Biden pardoning Fauci for any offenses against the US he may have committed. The new website outlines that a biological trait found in the virus was not discovered in nature, thus strengthening the lab leak theory. It also emphasizes that Wuhan, where the first COVID-19 cases were identified, is home to China's leading SARS research lab. In the website, the assertion is made that if there was evidence of a natural origin, it would have already surfaced, but it has not. Earlier in January, the Trump administration's CIA reported that a lab leak was likely the origin of COVID-19, a theory that had been dismissed as a conspiracy in the pandemic's early days. However, China claims in its paper that a joint study conducted with the World Health Organization found that COVID-19 was most likely transmitted from bats to humans through an intermediary animal. The report also criticizes the US report for not doing more to combat the virus. It says, and I quote here, the slow and ineffective US response in the early stages of the outbreak set an appalling example for the global community, making the US performance in managing the pandemic the worst among all countries. Instead of confronting this issue, the US government has attempted to shift blame and divert attention by politicizing the tracing of SARS-CoV-2 origins. On Wednesday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson also said that the COVID-19 is extremely unlikely to have leaked from a Chinese lab. In an authoritative scientific judgment, he said that it forms the basis of China's stance on origins tracing. The comments made at press conference in Beijing came shortly after China released the white paper titled COVID-19 Prevention, Control and Origins Tracing, China's Actions and Stance.
China has repeatedly articulated its position on the issue of COVID-19 origins tracing. This is a scientific matter, and any judgment on it must be made in a science-based spirit and by scientists. A lab leak is extremely unlikely. This is the authoritative conclusion reached by experts based on science following their field trips to the specific lab and in-depth communication with researchers. This conclusion has been widely acknowledged by the international community, including the scientific community, and serves as the scientific foundation for China's position.
With this, the Chinese government wants future origin tracing efforts to focus on the US. This is not the first time that China has shifted the blame onto the US. Since at least mid-2020, tit-for-tat accusations regarding the virus's origin have been exchanged, especially following China's attempts to hide details of the initial outbreak. Over the years, Chinese officials have promoted theories that suggest the virus emanated or originated outside of China, including unfounded claims related to US military personnel, and emphasized detections of the virus on frozen food imports and ice cream. Remember, China allowed a team of scientists from the WHO into the country on a mission to probe the source of the outbreak. But some members of the team expressed concerns about Chinese officials blocking access to crucial information. And then there's the question of evidence that suggests that the virus was first identified among people who either worked at or visited the market in Wuhan. While there is evidence that the virus jumped to humans from bats through an intermediary animal, the question of where COVID-19 came from remains a mystery even today, perhaps more so than it did 3 years ago. Will we ever truly know the origin of COVID-19? Well, that only time will tell. Well, let's now tell you what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Security officials are now saying that the Lebanese army, along with Israel, has dismantled more than 90% of Hezbollah's infrastructure in Lebanon. From America, we will tell you after Tesla CEO Elon Musk just a few days ago said that he is stepping back from his role overseeing Doge. Tonight we ask if Musk's White House exit could cost him his Tesla CEO crown. And finally, in a medical major breakthrough, the United Kingdom's National Health Services, or the NHS, has rolled out a super jab that can treat up to 15 types of cancers. Lebanon and Israel are claiming that more than 90% of Hezbollah's infrastructure in southern Lebanon has been dismantled ever since the last November ceasefire between the two sides. According to a senior Israeli security official and Lebanon's prime minister, the Lebanese army has dismantled Hezbollah's military facilities and seized arms south of the Litani River, which is around 20 kilometers north of the Israeli border. The Lebanese Prime Minister said that the Lebanese army, and I'm quoting here, filled and closed most of Hezbollah's strong underground infrastructure in the south. According to the Prime Minister, Lebanese soldiers have increased deployment to prevent Hezbollah from transferring arms. The Israeli security official also claimed that Hezbollah is cooperating with the Lebanese army and voluntarily withdrawing from the area. Earlier this week, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun said that the country's army is now in control of over 85% of the country's south.
The Lebanese army is now in control of nearly 80% to 85% and even more of the country's south. It cleared the area.
And however said that the full deployment of the Lebanese army in these areas is hindered by the continuing Israeli presence on 5 key points along the Israeli southern Lebanon border.
The Lebanese army has not completed deployment along the border with Israel due to Israel's occupation of 5 points.
Well, after last November's ceasefire, the IDF withdrew from all parts of southern Lebanon, barring 5 key points. Israel's defense minister said that IDF will remain at these points indefinitely. Now, while Lebanon and Israel are claiming that Hezbollah has removed its infrastructure, they have not provided any details or evidence for it. In a televised speech on Monday, Hezbollah Secretary General Naim Qassem said that the Lebanese government needs to exert more pressure to secure full Israel withdrawal from Lebanon, as well as put an end to Israel's bombing in the country.
We believe it's the responsibility of the Lebanese state to follow up by pressuring the 2 sponsor states, the United States and France, as well as in the United Nations, the Security Council and the UNIFIL forces. The state must exert pressure.
It's also important to keep in mind that disarming Hezbollah is not so straightforward. According to think tanks, prior to this conflict with Israel, Hezbollah was estimated to have 120,000 to 200,000 rocket and missiles, such as surface-to-surface artillery rockets, anti-aircraft and anti-ship missiles, as well as guided missiles capable of striking deep inside Israel. Furthermore, in 2021, Hezbollah said it had over 100,000 fighters. So, has Lebanon and Israel truly dismantled Hezbollah infrastructure, or is this just a claim born out of the growing closeness between the Lebanese government and Israel? Like the case in February, where Lebanon barred entry of Iranian airlines into the country after Israel alleged that Iran's Quds forces were using civilian flights to smuggle money to Hezbollah through the Beirut airport. As it stands, the claims of Hezbollah dismantling seems to be unfounded. Israel is now facing a national crisis, raging wildfires. They're going through parts of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, forcing evacuation of communities. At least 13 people have been injured so far. The situation up until Wednesday looks grim, with the fire spreading quickly and inching towards the city. However, major bushfires have been largely brought under control. Our next report telling you more.
Fire scorching swathes of forested land, a driveway through hell. Skies engulfed in plumes of dark grey smoke. These are not scenes from a doomsday movie. This is current day Israel, which is in the middle of a national emergency. Israel is living its worst nightmare in a decade, with multiple fires fueled by strong winds and high temperatures breaking out. What's worrying is the fact that these fires are fast moving from forests to the cities, endangering public life. This area, concentrated in the Jerusalem hills between the city and Tel Aviv, contains some of the active fire zones. This is the main highway connecting Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, also known as Route 1. It is the site where the blazed fire ignited. The highway, along with other roads, have now reopened after being closed down temporarily, out of fear of the fire spreading far and wide.
A lot of police arrived, a lot of firefighters, but it didn't really help. The fire had already completely taken over the whole area here, as you can see behind me.
Authorities say bushfires near Jerusalem have mostly been tamed. However, given the scale of the fires, the situation on ground continues to remain volatile, demanding deployment of more firefighting troops to bring things under control.
We hope to reach 150 firefighting teams. I decided to bring ATVs that we established as part of the standby groups in the north. Currently there are 20 of them operating in the area. Let's hope we reach 50 ATVs.
Firefighters are trying to tackle the fire from all sides, from land as well from air. Israel is not alone in this fight against raging wildfires. Aid is trickling in from several European countries such as Italy, Croatia, Spain, France, Romania and others, which are sending aircraft and relief to Israel's rescue. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
With no clarity yet on a ceasefire agreement, Russian attacks today targeted the Ukrainian cities of Odessa and Kharkiv. A drone attack on the Black Sea port of Odessa in the early hours killed 2 people and injured 15 others, sending over 200 civilians scrambling for cover. These are the scenes showing the aftermath of a large-scale drone strike in a residential area of Ukraine's port city. Residential buildings and civil infrastructure have been damaged in various parts of Odessa. This city has been facing repeated attacks since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022.
There is nothing left. Nothing. Her artificial teeth are gone. She didn't have time to take her artificial teeth. She can't chew. We have to go to the dentist and order a new set. The last time it took several months. It is the biggest problem.
In Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, an overnight strike injured 45 people in the aftermath of the Russian strike. Firefighters were seen battling blazes in various residential areas. The State Emergency Service said residential buildings, infrastructure and cars have been destroyed in the attack. Meanwhile, relentless fighting continues in the Russian territory of Kursk as well. President Vladimir Putin says some Ukrainian soldiers are holding out in the region. Russia had earlier claimed that Ukrainian troops had been driven out of parts of the Kursk region that Ukraine briefly seized after a surprise incursion last year. The Russian president had earlier announced a temporary ceasefire from May 8th till May 11th. In response, Ukraine called for an immediate ceasefire lasting at least 30 days, a demand that Russia has rejected. Well, the Russian bombardments comes in the backdrop of Ukraine signing the much-anticipated minerals deal with the U.S. Now, the deal grants U.S. access to the country's key mineral reserves. U.S. President Donald Trump recently completed 100 days at the White House, and so did his close aide, Tesla CEO Elon Musk. As the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, however, the question that is in everyone's mind is he still in business as far as his operations in the White House are concerned? And will it cost him his role at Tesla? A question that is riddled with uncertainty. Why is that? Technically, Musk's term in the White House has come to an end, with reports suggesting that Musk will no longer be working from the Oval Office. He will look to renew focus on his companies, Tesla and SpaceX. But how far is that from reality? U.S. President Donald Trump recently said in a cabinet meeting that Musk is welcome to stay for as long as he wants. Trump also said that Musk had been treated unfairly as he helped downsize the federal government workforce.
Been treated unfairly, but the vast majority of people in this country really respect and appreciate you, and this whole room can say that very strongly. You've really been a tremendous help. You opened up a lot of eyes as to what could be done, and we just want to thank you very much. And you know, you're invited to stay as long as you want. At some point, I guess he wants to get back home to his cars.
All right, let's get a few things straight. Over the course of time, Musk has accumulated both political power and influence, which has propped him up during Trump's first 100 days in office. Musk has gone about dismantling government agencies and public services that took decades to build. He has fired tens and thousands of workers and cut down on federal programs in the garb of cost cuts and government efficiency. He has amassed a major amount of clout, and in his own words, Musk claims he is someone who dons multiple hats, sometimes two at the same time.
Elon, I love the double hat, by the way. He's the only one that can do that. Get away with it.
Well, Mr. President, they say I wear a lot of hats. It's true. Even my hat has a hat.
Well, and there might be just some merit to his claims. Being the world's richest man as well as the CEO of multi-billion-dollar companies is perhaps no mean feat. But heavy is the head which wears that crown. And for Musk, it's no different. Recently, the Wall Street Journal reported that Musk's Tesla job might be under fire. It claims that Tesla's board of directors has initiated a search for a new CEO who could replace Musk nearly after 2 decades. Musk, however, has refuted such claims, calling the report false and accusing the newspaper of a breach of journalistic ethics. But what triggered this in the first place is the question. As per the report, concerns were initially raised owing to Musk's increased time spent in Washington. But that's partly the reason. Of late, there's been a sharp decline in Tesla's financial performance. With Tesla's sales and profits plunging fast, whisper networks indicate this has created a rift within Tesla's leadership, a claim that Tesla denied categorically. But how bad is the situation really? Tesla's first quarter profit reportedly plunged by 71%. And the company's share price fell from a December 2024 peak of $1.5 trillion in market value to around $900 billion. Not just that, Musk's net worth has also dropped majorly. These have also been touted as reasons why Musk wants to backpedal on his White House role and commit himself full-time to Tesla's cause. Musk's political influence factors in here. Reports suggest Musk's proximity to Trump might also be a cause for concern for Tesla, leading to challenges in key markets like California, Germany, and even China. But at this point, it is as good as conjecture. As far as Musk is concerned, he does not mind multitasking and juggling roles. He's set to build a legacy of his own. But experts ask, is Musk biting off more than he can chew? All right, in other news, a 3-day wave of political rallies has begun in Bangladesh. Rival groups are flooding Dhaka as the country awaits fresh elections after former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was deposed last year. Nobel Peace Prize winner Muhammad Yunus, now 84, is heading the interim government. He took charge after Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina fled into exile last August. Yunus says elections will be held by December this year or by mid-2026 at the latest. The BNP, widely seen as the frontrunner, is holding a massive May Day rally. The Jamaat-e-Islami and the Jataya party are also taking to the streets. For the Jataya, this is the first outdoor event since their offices were vandalized in October, allegedly for backing Hasina. On Friday, the National Citizens Party, formed by student leaders of last year's demonstrations, will stage a rally. Its leader, Nahid Islam, initially joined the Yunus cabinet, then quit to form the NCP. The party is expecting a crowd of up to 30,000 people. On Saturday, the Hifazat-e-Islam is holding a grand rally to demand removal of the reforms proposed by the Women's Commission. The group says it will continue to demonstrate regardless of who leads the government. Bangladesh last held elections in January 2024. Yunus says the caretaker government will deliver democratic reforms before taking the country to the polls. Elections could be held early or later, depending on the political consensus. U.S. President Donald Trump says that Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney would visit Washington in the coming week. This while hailing him as very nice, despite tensions over Trump's tariffs and annexation threat.
It couldn't have been nicer, and I congratulated him. You know, it was a very mixed signal because it's almost even, which makes it very complicated for the country. It's a pretty tight race, but he's a very nice gentleman, and we He's going to come to the White House very shortly, within the next week or less.
Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party had been on track to win the vote, but Trump's attacks combined with the departure of unpopular former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau transformed this race. Carney, who replaced Trudeau as Prime Minister just last month, convinced voters that his experience managing economic crisis made him the ideal contestant to defy Trump, and Trump highlighted that while talking to reporters as well.
He was running for office. They both hated Trump, and it was the one that hated Trump, I think, the least that won. I actually think the conservative hated me much more than the so-called liberal.
Trump's statement comes day after Ottawa said that Trump congratulated Carney in a telephonic call following the declaration of poll results, adding the leaders agreed to meet in person in the near future and work together as independent sovereign nations. In a major medical breakthrough, the United Kingdom's National Health Service, or the NHS, has rolled out a super jab that can treat up to 15 types of cancers, drastically cutting down treatment time from an hour to just 5 minutes. The newly approved injection is under the skin version of nivolumab, an immunotherapy drug that helps the body's own immune system fight cancer. Instead of a traditional IV drip, patients will now receive a quick jab, saving time, space and stress, and can fight 15 types of cancers, including lung, kidney, bladder and skin cancers. Well, the jab works by blocking cancer's ability to block the immune system's T cells and helps the body recognize and attack cancer cells, a major milestone in immunotherapy. The NHS says treating cancer patients with the jab can save around 1,000 hours of treatment time for patients every month. The rollout comes after the UK's medicines regulator, the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, approved the jab. According to the World Cancer Research Fund, over 20 million new cancer cases were diagnosed in 2022, with China leading with over 5 million cases alone, followed by the US with more than 2 million new cases and India with 1.4 million new cancer cases. The UK saw more than 450,000 new diagnoses. The injectable cancer treatment is expected to improve the lives of thousands of patients every month and proves to be a promising sign of how innovation and public healthcare can perhaps come together to transform lives. Well, men's fashion just got a whole new twist. More and more men are shaving off their eyelashes, inspired by a viral video in Turkey, where barbers across the world are performing the service. They say clients are getting it done in a bid to look more masculine. I know what you're thinking. What is the perhaps correlation between eyelashes and masculinity after all? And how does one even shave them off? Well, your guess is as good as mine. Well, apparently, social media videos show that men are braving such a move by wielding blades, electric clippers or using a pair of scissors, thus risking a great deal of safety just to appear masculine. And if it does not do anything, it feeds a sense of fragile masculinity. Thanks to online trends like manosphere propagated by figures like Andrew Tate. You see, long and lustrous lashes have long been associated with beauty in women or deemed as typically feminine features. In men, long lashes have often stoked controversy in terms of how they look, and not just eyelashes. Men wearing makeup or donning accessories have also come under scrutiny, as it seeks to challenge traditional gender constraints there. It's 2025 and we are still debating bodily autonomy and how must one look, what must one wear in a bid to be more acceptable. Around the world, workers marked International Workers' Day, raising their voices for fair wages, respect, rights and social justice. From Paris to Buenos Aires, Turkey to Pakistan, the demands may differ, but the spirit remains the same: dignity and protection for every worker. In Buenos Aires, Argentina's main labor unions hit the streets on International Workers' Day, criticizing President Javier Milei's austerity policies. Demonstrators waved flags bearing the image of late Pope Francis, paying tribute to his legacy and calling for compassionate governance. With the minimum wage stuck at just $250 and failed talks for an increase, frustration is at fever pitch. While Javier Milei claims 2,000 structural reforms and promises growth is next, the worker unions are not buying it.
It cannot be that the workers are the adjustment variable of a government that directs the entire crisis towards us so well. Today we are back on the streets, and we hope to now go out looking for continuity with 36 hours strike.
In Seoul, the workers rallied under the banner of the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions. Leaders Yang Kyung-soo declared it a movement for union rights and social justice, calling out the government while pushing for stronger labor protections across the board. Tensions also reached the streets of Turkey as the police clashed with May Day demonstrators trying to reach Taksim Square, a symbolic and now banned ground for demonstrations. The demonstrators were forcibly detained as unions and civil society groups raised the pitch for workers' rights and justice. Well, Indian actor Shah Rukh Khan has not had a release in the past 1 year, but his fame and fortune are not taking any hit.